Hey, community groups, Pastor JJ here, and it's an honor to be bringing you the front end of your group's discussion this week. We are in chapter 4, and it's been exciting to see kind of what God is doing through the characters in the book of Daniel. And that's kind of my first thought I want to think about today, is that there's these characters. It's not just about Daniel. Last week we were talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in this fiery furnace, and those three guys come into play almost right from the beginning. And we see them from the beginning when Daniel is going to them and seeking counsel. Not only is he praying and seeking counsel from God, he actually goes to his friends to ask them some questions and to start looking at what those dreams are. And one of the themes that I think that is running all the way through Daniel is that some of what we need in our life are wise people around us. Not only does Daniel seek wise people around us, King Nebuchadnezzar is seeking wise people around him, and he keeps asking for people to come to him. In chapter 1 and 2, he's ready to kill all those wise people because no one is willing to tell him the truth. But Daniel and his friends step up, and together as a community, they're going forward, and we're seeing that lived out. Now, we're in chapter 4 this week, and let's go through this together for a second. Here's what I think. Ultimately, the way we live our life is based on our values. We started that in chapter 1. In week 1, we started talking about what we value and how that might come out in our life. We're seeing that through this book. Daniel's values, King Nebuchadnezzar's values, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their values, and the people around them, they're not willing to compromise either way. Now, it kind of bubbles to the top here with in chapter 4. Now, at the beginning, King Nebuchadnezzar, he has this dream, and he is terrified. So if you look in chapter 4, verse 4 and 5, it says that he had this dream, and he was afraid, and it terrified him. Again, we're going back to these dreams and being human. I want us to think about this. Was Nebuchadnezzar terrified because he knew that potentially this dream was about him? I don't know. It doesn't actually say that in here, but I can only speculate by me being human and Nebuchadnezzar being human that when you have a dream and a dream so terrifying, was he thinking that this was about him, but he just didn't want to say, yes, this is really about him? This is really going to happen in his life? I don't know. That's just something to chew on. You can talk about in your groups. But he goes through this entire dream. This dream is not like any of his other dreams. It's probably more terrifying, and it's more telling of the kingdom that he has underneath him, and it's talking about his values and what he values. Well, it goes on to Daniel interpreting the dream, and it says, then Daniel was greatly perplexed for a time, and his thoughts terrified him. So the king said, hey, Daniel, don't let your dream or its meaning alarm you. I find this really funny because Daniel doesn't say he goes back to his friends. I wonder if he actually assumes by writing this that we know he's probably checking in with his friends about this dream, and that it's such a scary dream because, again, he's having to tell the king the truth. There's a chance that telling the king the truth is going to put him and his friends in harm's way. But what does Daniel do? He stays faithful to his values. His values are that he's going to be faithful to God no matter what. He is going to tell the truth no matter what. And he goes on to say, hey, here's the deal. King, this dream is really about you. And it's about how God is going to work in your life. And I love this. If you turn then into verse 29, it starts talking about how these prophecies in this dream starts coming true, and how God cut down King Nebuchadnezzar, say that one fast. He cuts down King Nebuchadnezzar, but it talks about that the roots were still there, and it's like he's pouring water back on him. I don't know about you, but it's really encouraging to me because what I see God telling us about this king is that his values got all mixed up. He was the greatest king and he had all this power and people were bowing to him and every nation, it didn't matter what your faith was, we're all coming together. But the problem is that he thought he then was a God and that he was more important than the Most High God. And God cut him down and humbled him and brought him back to a space where he had to acknowledge this was the one true God. But what I am really encouraged about is he doesn't get rid of him completely. He cuts him all the way down and his roots are still there. Well, something that I see in that is that God will bring us back down, but the roots that we put up into place, those things that are healthy and how he led and maybe some of his character that was still good is still there and the deep roots are there. But now God's going to water that and he's going to come alongside you and build you up and build your values back up into a way that glorifies him. The whole ending of this chapter, we see this beautiful story of the king acknowledging. He says, "Praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble." I love that Daniel stuck with it and we get to see God's faithfulness in and through what he does with this king. Now, as you head out into your community groups, I want you to think about those values, what you value, and how that is rolling out in your own life as you are going through the discussion questions. And maybe be encouraged about this. If our pride and our ego and everything is way up, God's not going to completely get rid of us, but he will humble us down to a spot where he can then water and encourage those good things in our life. Hey, have a great rest of your group, and I hope that you guys have a great discussion. See ya.